Welcome to Tech Beyond Gender podcast. So, now to start us off, who are you? What do you currently do in the tech ecosystem?
Hi, Meena. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Amanda Watson, and I'm representing Tech Women New Zealand. And I am a relationship manager, account manager within the realm of IT, and have been doing this for nearly 25 years now.
Now for listeners who are new to Tech Women New Zealand, can you tell us a little bit more about them? And I know that they have initiatives such as ShadowTech and mentoring circles. What are they designed to achieve?
Certainly. So, Tech Women New Zealand is a non-profit organisation. I've been with them for 6 years, but I believe they're around about 10 years in longevity and part of a group which used to be known as Tech Alliance, but is now known as NZ Tech. They did a rebrand at the end of last year, as well as events, which is my speciality. We also run programs called ShadowTech and mentoring circles. So I'm happy to go into each of those elements. We also are bringing on more and more sponsors. We currently have sponsors such as Deloitte's, Westpac, 2 Degrees, AWS, that we partner with, collaborate with in the event space. We often will have hybrid events so that people throughout the country who can't make a physical event can still attend, and we do virtual breakouts, etc. We cover topics that we ourselves, our members, and our sponsors are all focused on. And we tend to have 5 major events a year, which include Ada Lovelace Day. She was the considered the first developer, of course, Ada Lovelace. And we have International Women's Day, so we always do something around about then. We have Tech Week, where we do stuff, and we have a regular midwinter webinar, which is super relaxed and super fun as well, and a Christmas event. So anything around that we tend to do with our sponsors or collaboration partners, and can happen in between those 5 staple items. With the increase of our sponsors, you're going to see a lot more going on. The other thing that our sponsors are involved in are the 2 other main programs that we do, which is ShadowTech and mentoring circles. ShadowTech is aimed at girls of the ages 9 to, or years 9 to 15, years 9 to 11, I'm sorry. So they're around about 10 years old to 15 years old. And ShadowTech partners up with schools across the country so that we can educate girls on what other roles there are within IT. There is a misconception that it's coding and making games, which is cool if that's what you want to do. But there are 1,000 other things that women are really good at. And so what we do is we offer a place where we explain to them all the other potential roles that they can do. And then we assist them in the schools to educate them so that we can increase the number of girls coming out of school into university with an understanding of what skill set they have that could align into the IT industry, especially at the rate it's moving at the moment. As you can appreciate, it's super fast, and we don't have as many technical people that are girls, even though women, girls can be very mathematically minded and very technical. As you all know better than others, I suspect. Or you've got people like me, the other end, which are the talky, relationship salesy, go out for a coffee, networky, that kind of type of person. So then we also have mentoring circles. This is a very popular program with Tech Women New Zealand as well, where we partner with companies again, and you will have a mentor that will have up to 6 mentees. So we're partnering people to learn, expand, grow, and they have a very set structure, and there's fluidity within the structure, of course, but then, that's the other program that's run and can also be sponsored in part by our sponsors as well in certain areas. So sponsorship is not my bag, that's Yvonne, but the 2 events and sponsorship work closely together, and they are very involved. So it's growing all the time.
A lot of activities, and it's nice to
Yeah.
know that There are all these options and services available for women in tech in New Zealand. That's awesome. So now, what drew you to this work, and why does it matter to you personally?
That's a really big question. And I'm not very good at highlights and bullet points, but I will try to be succinct. So I'll give you very basics. I've been at this now for 25 years. I've grown up effectively throughout this industry. I've seen a lot change, and sadly, I've seen a lot stay the same. And the reason why this totally resonated for me is because seeing evolving within the IT industry, I could see that there were some places where supporting women and the way that we think, which is different to the way that men think, in a predominantly male created and um, occupied industry, that women could use a bit more support. Over the 25 years that I've been in the industry, a lot's changed around parenting, around support through parenting, maternity leave, paternity leave, uh, extended families. So the whole balance has changed. And yet there seems to be some aspects that still need addressing, such as when women return to work, they're the part of the family which needs to take time off in order to have a child to create, higher population to feed into the economic structure. However, companies have not yet caught up with the fact that women make up a huge part of that economy, and how do you support them upon their return rather than admonish them or keep them suppressed because they have had 6 months out, 8 months out, 1 year out trying to raise more humans effectively. We can't hand that bit off. So there's changes going on, not as fast as I'd like to see personally. I have hope springs eternal, and I've watched a lot of the millennials and Gen Zs come through, some still facing some of the challenges. Even at my age, I can often be sitting in a room of senior leadership and be the diversity in the room, which it shouldn't still be that way, but it still is that way. So I think my drive was to help us be seen and heard and valued. Also, during this time, having women within the IT industry has been noticed to change quite a masculine dynamic in order to having more feminine things like soft skills are now called power skills, and the men have called it business skills. So where we have brought in a different perspective across certain areas of business and our roles and where they're going. And I think with ShadowTech, we can focus on girls that haven't yet entered but will be influencing those changes in doing jobs we haven't even invented yet. So that's a really long reason why I do this. I just wanted to help be a voice that gets heard and support people.
Nice. So you mentioned a little bit about young parents, about returning to work, the challenges they face and stuff. But besides that, what other specific challenges do women in tech face in current workplace?
I think there are a lot of very capable women in the industry. I know lots and lots of them. And one of the things that they face is career progression, particularly, and one of the things that is a societal thing. Women in their 30s and men in their 30s. Men in their 30s are going out and creating. They're in their job and they're creating the role. They're going higher up. They're going up the ranks. Their partner at the time will have to choose at what point do they, if they're both equally matched in their career and their salary, who, they need to take some time off. The woman needs to take some time off, and somebody hiring her may look at a woman in her early 30s going, how much is that going to cost me in 18 months when she decides she's going to go off, and she'll just get started and then need to go off for another year. She'll say 6 months, but it'll turn into a year. And that is a corporate societal thing that needs to change. So I think that's something that women will need to address and struggle a little bit longer with. But it's not a woman's struggle. It's a family, business struggle. And how do we work around that? So that's something else that Tech Women New Zealand does quite a bit as well, is how do
Can
you,
I interrupt you there a little bit?
yeah.
What you just described is a problem that women in all industries face, right? Is it specific to tech in any manner, or how do you describe that?
I think the only thing within the tech industry is it goes a lot faster, right? So
Mhm.
things happen really fast. And if you're out of action at home for 9 months, 10 months, 12 months, then the job that you used to do will have sped forward. There will be technologies that speed forward, relationships that would have sped forward, fluctuations in the industry, decisions that will have sped forward that are technically, charged. So I think in that way, certification wise, and then you come back as a woman in any industry and you feel that you are behind, and then how do you make up that gap? So it's different, especially because your partner wouldn't have missed a beat, and that's when you get the gap. So I mean, it may happen in every industry because I'm sad I only know this one. I've only been involved in this one, watching that happen. But if from a technical perspective, stuff moves fast. If you're out of 9 months, 10 months, 12 months, and you're not up to date with security or AI, yeah, what do you do then? When 9, 10 other CVs versus your one, are all up to date. So that's an impact that you have. And then how do we support that?
Yeah, exactly. What other challenges have you seen besides moms, young parents returning back to work?
What I see is a lot of women in management, but not senior leadership. So I've worked and, in all sorts of places and in several countries where you will have a leadership team and then you'll have their managers that report into them. And the managers are all kinds of diverse, from age and background and all sorts of things. But in the top tier of leadership may not be diverse. And I think that's a challenge as well.
Mhm.
Um, and these are just observations. And I think there's still a breakdown between being heard. And I don't think it's just a woman's thing in technology, but I think it depends on who's listening. So you can have lots and lots of different people saying lots of different things from different backgrounds and ethnicities, and female or male, trying to be heard. But it's harder. I think women. If have you heard of Women Rising, Meena, as well? You know,
No.
okay, so that's another program
Mhm.
that also deals with this. And Megan runs this wonderful course that takes about 6 months, and a lot of companies invest in it. And some of the things you learn along that is that we as women have natural, obviously we're different to men, we can tell, but we have different reactions to certain things, and we have things like imposter syndrome a lot. And we also have a different nervous system. We have a different genetic, way of reacting to things and responding to things and doubting things and communicating with things. And like I've said before, technology is predominantly was created by men for men in a male way. So, there's still some of that coming up through the decades, through the generations. And so I think one of the reasons why female programs in technology are growing is because Women still aren't feeling seen or heard. And I think that's prevalent.
Yeah. Now, what keeps you coming back to Tech Woman New Zealand, especially besides your very busy work schedule, right? What
Um,
is it? What drives you?
wow. Gosh, so many things. First of all, Eva and Summer, fantastic women. You get to know them and understand what they've been through. The people that I work with, uh, Yvonne's so onto it. She's a very capable woman. The events team are fantastic and very diverse from all kind. Neurodiversity is this other thing that's coming up all the way through what we're doing as well. I don't know if you're coming up against, I'm not against it. If that's not coming up a lot in what you do as well, Meena, and how neurodiversity, ADHD, is a superpower. It's not an affliction. And that's amazing as well. And the members, and they're so passionate. And one of my favorite things that we do, I know we do International Women's Day, and I know we do Ada Lovelace, but when we do winter webinar, we're really quite interactive with the members, and we'll have 300 or 400 on there, and they're all in the chats, and we're all watching things whilst we're having, we're doing our bits in between, because we talk about the main topics that we're passionate about. And it's all of this communication from the members. Thank you so much. I feel really heard and seen. And yes, we're having this problem too. And oh, I thought it was just me. Community. This
Mm.
wonderful community. Yeah. So I think that's why I'm still there all the time, as passionate about it today as I was 5 or 6 years ago.
That's very nice. So now, how much of this work is about fixing system versus supporting individuals to navigate them?
You can't fix it, you can only influence it. Look, in my experience, you can't fix it, right? We're not at that generation yet. It needs to be another 20 years, and I think there might be some fixing. So, in all, what we offer is the space for the next generation to be seen and heard, and giving them the courage to step into that. I think because you can sit here and say, "Oh, be feisty, be honest, be true." No, people don't want that. Actually, people are scared of that. So how do you be honest and feisty and true and have power skills and a voice and be seen without being too obvious, and heard without being too brash, and feisty without being too aggressive, and all these things that we're combating all the time, which is it's like walking through treacle or concrete all the time. What we provide is a safe space for women to go, I'm encountering this. Is this normal? Has anyone else gone through this? This is some of the challenges that I face. And so we provide a space where people can talk about that, reach out to other people, learn things, like it's really daunting when you decide, am I going to have a family? Am I not? Will I have a career when I get back? Will I not? Will anyone look at my CV? Do I have to get a 9 to 3 job? Who's going to look after my parents now that I'm in my 50s? Who's going to be looking after, the kids and the parents? Do I take that time off? All these day-to-day questions. I mean, we know, Meena, that it is statistically proven that a man will apply for a job, whether he's 50% confident that he might get it, he'll still go for it. One of the programs that we do is to encourage women, if they feel 70% that they might get it, then they should put themselves out there. Because what women do is they will look at something, and this is where we mentor on guides. We can't fix the system yet. That takes a longer time to influence, but we can guide women to go, hey, step out of your comfort zone, apply for it.
Yeah.
Shift work or weekend work will be put into the job description, and a woman will instantly go, oh, hang on, wait, 2 kids, got a dog, got the kids, got ballet, got rugby. Can we do that? Can we feasibly do that? And at the moment, guys don't think like that. Companies don't think like that.
Mm.
And so how do you help HR, recruitment, managers' job descriptions define it more clearly so that women go,
Yeah.
oh, okay, it's only once every 6 weeks that I need to do shift work or da 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 da, and how will this impact? Because we are still in that balance where a lot of the women who are in our community are trying to do the bulk of running the home and having a career and managing parents as well. So
Mm.
there's an awful lot to be supported.
Yeah. Now, going back to something you mentioned a wee bit before about appearing to be enthusiastic about something but not being perceived as being arrogant, right? Like, how do you manage that? How can you show that you're very passionate about your work and very enthusiastic about it, but at the same time not be seen as being arrogant?
Yeah, well, I think this all really depends where you are. I hate to say it, but it really, really depends what kind of business you work for, what's your, the structure around you. Some people are celebrated to be very enthusiastic. I think New Zealand as well. I mean, you and I obviously we work here, but we are aware of different cultures and different working cultures. I come from an English background, which kind of leaned quite into being American, I suppose, in the way that you would have to promote yourself, whereas Kiwis are much more humble. So, and IT is one of the most diverse industries. When you sit in a room and there's like this cast of nations, and even though you're all in New Zealand, two might be actual true blood Kiwis. Do you know what I mean? So I think to be able to express yourself and be heard, and say, hey, like I'm trying here, has a lot to do with what's around you and who you're talking to. I would recommend finding a somebody that's your champion. If I was to give advice, it would be who believes in you, who is heard by the other echelons around you, and how what you could perceive something yourself is successful, but other people rate things as a success in their how they monitor things. And so you need to find out how do they gauge success as well so that you can be seen to be successful. But I think also one of the things that a lot of us struggle with as women in the industry, and I've seen it often, and it might be stronger in my generation. I really hope it is, and I hope that other generations don't feel this. But we get a lot of, oh yeah, please talk up. Oh, but don't talk about that. And we really love your ideas, but can you just keep it down to some of the things that we're talking about? And we really want you to contribute, but you're contributing a bit too much. And I'm not the only person that has gone through this. So many people in my generation have gone through that, and it's like shine bright but not too bright, and it's a real dance to the death of stripping yourself of your self-confidence. And I think that's a real pity. And I think I don't honestly think the business world is ready for us to shine as bright as we all should. And they all put things around the walls going, these are our values: trust, vulnerability, kindness, but are they? So I think you need to still be really cognizant of who is in your surroundings.
Um, the work that you're doing with ShadowTech is amazing. Many organizations put in a lot of effort with the grad recruitment process and stuff, right? And they tend to strike a balance when they recruit um, graduates. But then what I feel is after a few years, why do we still see a dropout of women in technical roles, senior technical roles? You still see it. Like women somewhat gravitate towards like sort of business roles rather than technical roles. And I just feel that a cultural shift needs to happen And a lot of the times we tend to scratch the surface, which is more comfortable and easier to handle than actually go more into the grassroots levels, that is shifting the cultural thinking of people, right? How do we do this?
So again, I believe it will depend, or I believe in my experience, you can educate youngsters at school, ShadowTech, for example, years 9 to 11 and onwards, but their brains are not in a place where they really understand what is a relationship manager or what is a architect, senior architect. All they know is they are doing things at school that fit into a syllabus, that they're told what to do. That their view of computers is laptops, iPads, phones, Wi-Fi, gaming.
Mhm.
So their perception is very, very small. A lot of women fall into IT. It's not our go-to. A huge percentage of women end up in IT. Now, that's not obviously not all of them, but a large percentage of women ended up in IT. So the technical aspect as well, you've got a few things. If you're in that family making decade, quite often being technical, you can't keep up with it. So then you have to shift to being a business analyst or test analyst or something else, maybe service delivery. So you still have a technical background, but because your demands are now spread, you may want to move into a different areas. Is my experience of working with people. Money, you can go so high at a financial level, at a technical in a technical role, and if you move into more of a business role, such as consultant, or moving out from being a network engineer into an architectural role, then you will be able to get more money in more of a business role. So having women within the technical roles in the industry, in my experience, which might be different to yours, is that there is a life phase aspect, of a maintenance aspect, a financial aspect, and then you have a perception aspect. Now, this is to do with the business rather than the person applying for the business. When statistically, when a woman goes into a technical interview in an IT industry, like an IT role, the first thing she will have to prove is that she can do the technical aspect. When a male with the same proven technical background goes into the same interview, it will be accepted by the panel that they have the technical aptitude, and then they'll be looking for the personality fit.
Really? And
Statistic.
that's in New Zealand? Who would
Yeah,
even
I mean,
admit to it that they're doing that? Like, who would want to be perceived as
it's
being
a
a sexist?
bias. It's like a natural bias. So we haven't quite shifted out of that mentality yet. You know how there's all this conversation around bias. People have a perception. So it is perceived that a male, particularly if they don't have a break in their career, whereas
Mhm.
a woman will probably have a break in her career, let's be honest, at some point, but she's going for a technical role and she's in that age where she's coming back from being a parent. There'll be a break on her CV. She's going in with other people who are male that don't have the break on the CV, and if she was in a head-to-head comparison with somebody else, it is more statistically. And I don't really know how they did this, because people would have to be super honest, say, well, yes, I just assumed that
Yeah.
when the man came in, the perception was he can already do the job, but is he the right fit? Whereas the woman, there is a natural bias to assume, is she as technically minded? is her focus elsewhere? Has the break impacted her? So when you were talking earlier about what, why is there a wave, why is there a drop off, these are all the aspects to be considered from what we've seen in our little world.
Yeah, so I don't have a break in my career, and I'm just wondering what would that mean? Would I still fall under the category where I need to put an extra effort to prove that I have the technical expertise?
Painfully, probably. I hate to tell you. Yeah, isn't that awful? So I like to think that that's something that can be fixed by companies changing and a generational shift. But our generation hasn't yet shifted. I still work with people who grew up with the mum at home and who probably had the wife at home for a good couple of years raising the children. That's not to underestimate what those wives are capable of now and where they are in their career now. Like I said, I know so many fantastic, amazing, successful women. So many. That's not what we're talking about here. It's a lack of ability or their lack of success. It's we have a I think we have a dream of of where we can be in the industry, but we there are a lot of challenges to get there. Some are because we are women, and the baby making part of it takes a bigger toll. Because maybe it is much a more patriarchal career because it was created by men for men with men's brains, and then women accidentally sort of fell into it, 40 or 50 years ago, unless you're Ada Lovelace. Awesome woman, by the way. Could go on about her for a long time as well. But this, like I'm saying, it's a much bigger issue that we're trying to navigate through. And there are obstacles that we're trying to overcome. And then when you get into the business, you speak a different language to men. Which is why soft skills are now seen as a plus. This is traditionally a woman's thing. This is vulnerability, trust, communication, lean in, female stuff, right? That's all packaged under female stuff. And then it became like, oh, says Richard Branson, they're really, really good skills. And then someone else went, hey, why don't we stop calling them soft skills and start calling them power skills? Yes, that's a much better, more acceptable name. Yes. And business skills. So you've taken something that's a natural feminine attribute, aligned it in a way that can be packaged to go, oh, yes, yeah, we can get on board with that. You know, when I worked here, worked at an amazing company with some incredible, incredible managers. And when you get that incredible leadership of vulnerability, accessibility, kindness, listening, it creates something really, really special, where you wouldn't need to have, are you listening to me? I'm a woman over here versus men. Why don't we have a men's day? You've got all these women's things going on. Do you know what I mean? And it breaks down all of that. And that's nirvana. That's what we should be working for. We all have different traits and abilities and capabilities and strengths, but we're not using it to the maximum advantage, I believe. And I also don't believe that the businesses are creating the right support, particularly around families, because you need both earners now. You need the economy of both sides. You need the male and the woman. I mean, the price of living is so high, and then you've got this new thing, childcare. Family used to look after the children, extended family, and now you outsource that as well, and we're all exhausted and frazzled. Other people are raising our kids, so there's a lot in it. There's a lot to talk about that exceeds just IT. Did that make any sense? Did I lose
Yeah,
you?
it does. Yeah. There were a few times you mentioned about generation, right? So just reminded me of a conversation I was having with a friend of mine who's still an architect in AWS, but currently in Sydney, and she was in Auckland until last year. And last year, when I was having a conversation with her, she mentioned to me that she was quite surprised that her 12-year-old daughter came back from school one day and mentioned to her that computers are for boys and it's not for girls. And this is coming from a 12-year-old. And the mom was quite surprised because mom has always been in tech. She didn't really have much of a career break as such with the kids. She continued working and she's always been in tech. And she was quite surprised that this is coming from the schools, from where she is there living, right? Like spending most of her day. And this is where it's coming from, that technology is for boys and not for girls.
I think sadly there is still that perception. One of our events members, amazing person, she actually said to us that her school didn't even offer computer science. Right, it was girls' school, didn't even offer computer science,
Yeah.
and
And that is still happening now, right? And in one of the Tech Beyond research that we launched, I think it was 2 years back, when I had this in-depth interview session, there was a young woman who was a fresh graduate working in one of the top organizations in technology sector. She mentioned to me that discrimination in workplaces is way less compared to discrimination that she faced in university. She told me that when she was working on technology projects, the boys would do the real technical work and the girls were assigned admin tasks around the technical work.
again, perception and bias, right? Stay in your
Mm.
lane. Stay in your lane. Now, look, again, let's go statistically. There have been many reports that women don't tend to be as mathematically minded as men. And I mean, and again, I'm going to talk about Ada Lovelace. I mean, she was a total mathematic genius, and there are lots of people out there who think like that, thinking mathematically and spatially and strategically. But these are deemed to be male strengths and male attributes, right? So if we take what you've just said, the university has decided that because you're a male, you will be much better in these areas. Statistically correct. And statistically, as a female, you'll be much better over here organizing stuff, prioritizing stuff, and then telling everyone over here on the male mathematical technical side how to do their stuff, you know? And there is an element of that that is genetic. You know, we are good at multitasking, we are good at nurturing, we are good at communicating, we are good at explaining, hey guys over there, this is, you know, the higher holistic perspective, this is where we're aiming for. And guys are, you know, more distanced, spatial awareness, mathematical. And look, I'll take this as simple as it gets, right? And I've been in this industry for 25 years. Now, Meena, you're technical, so don't laugh at me, but you can tell me it's 700 meters down the road and it could be 4.5 squirrels or 9 tree lengths. I don't know how long 700 meters is. That's a man thing. You know, when you want to get down the road at 700 meters, I'll tell you how many bus stops there are, how many yellow bins there are, which shop is on the left. Do you know what I mean? But I cannot measure 700 meters for the life of me. I can do 12, I can do 2 feet. You know, I know that how many, or 12, 6 foot. Yeah, no, rubbish. Total rubbish. You see, doesn't even compute. But for me, it's all about how much are we selling this for? What's the return on investment for this for? How long can we keep this up for? Where are we leaking profit? Different part of my brain. It's all maths though. You know, how do we work out what we're coming out of it? And again, what's the CPI for an increase per year? It's different part of the brain is working on that. Whether or not that's seen as a benefit in a male perception, leadership role, university lecturer role, university course role, is the way we see things, or our brain works, defined as right, wrong, good, bad. The way I see figures of maths and information is different to how a mathematically minded man would. And then you've got to go through that is a that discretion again. Does that make sense? Am I making any sense at all?
Yeah, when you are saying this, right, I just feel that this gender difference itself is weird to begin with, and like making generalizations based on gender, I feel it just needs to be seen as masculine traits and feminine traits.
Yes, as
So
well.
there can, yeah, so there can be women who might have more stronger masculine traits. There could be men with more stronger feminine traits. And each one of us, if you just remove that gender label, right, completely,
Yeah.
then each one of us will have different proportion of these traits,
Yeah.
right? But the problem is that we have just become so binary in our thinking, which
Mm.
has just sort of um, like we've started labeling people, okay, just by the way they look, saying, okay, male, this is how it is,
Oh, I
female, this
don't
is how
think so.
it
I
is,
think
right?
actually, if anything, we're in the generation where we're the least binary. I think if anything, everything's fluid, but it hasn't hit the business, hasn't hit the industry, and apparently it hasn't hit university, from what you just said. you know so I think I couldn't agree more with you that there are traits, right? And and that I know incredible men in this industry who I love to bits that have feminine and masculine traits, and ditto with the women. I totally agree with you. And I think if anybody brings those traits to the table, those strengths to the table, it should be treated with the same reverie and delight, and it should come in any color, age, and because there's also that yeah, there's a perception around youth. Why is it like a 60-year-old person, yes, has way more experience in the industry, but why does that outweigh what a 25-year-old with a whole different perception of what they've learned and how they use technology and what their brains are thinking? Why is that not brought to the table? Eva's really strong on this as well when we do the council. In Tech Women New Zealand, Eva and Summer are very strong on diversity. Different ages, different background, different areas of where you live, different experiences. All of that counts as a rounded experience. So I agree completely with what you're saying. It shouldn't be what we see. It should be what people bring to the table. But when you are growing up in a school that says coding is for boys, coding is computers, boys do well in IT, go to university and we're going to put you here and put you there, and then you leave and you go, what's the real world like? And I'll just flip back a little to say, in my last role, we had some incredible graduates, but there was a real gap in their understanding of what the IT industry was. They had huge amounts of passion and warmth and humor and open-mindedness and skills that you couldn't even imagine. It was so cool to learn. But they didn't understand what the industry was. And I think right there, you've got your balance. Well, this is the experience that we've had for 35 years, and you're coming in with this brand new, fresh, enthusiastic perception, change the world. How do we marry that? How do we, get you to have the stepping stones, the preparation, not the armor. Armor sounds terrible, but let's get you ready for this journey. What are you going to need? And off you go and fight the good fight. So that's a bit metaphorical, but I think what you've said is absolutely where we should be, but we're kind of not. I think our hearts are there. I don't think business is ready for us yet. We've still got the same glass ceilings to go for. And not just women, age, diversity, ethnicity, all of it. We're still trying to change stuff. Maybe it'll be the Gen Zs or the next gen, the Alphas. Don't know. I'm still waiting.
Yeah, so I was having recently a conversation with a 22-year-old. woman, and she mentioned to me her male colleague who was 23 was surprised why she is so passionate about her career, and why wouldn't she want to be a stay-at-home mom if given an option, and why would she not use that? So
So look, I know I just did the thing, but I understand we're different. We are, we're men and women. Why don't we want to be at home raising children? Well, who deemed it that that was what we did? Why is that all we are? It can be a part of who we are. And
mm,
a 23 young male, young man saying to an equally ambitious 22-year-old does not bode well for the next 10 years for those two, does it? Because, someone's going to learn the hard way, especially, with more and more feisty women in the age of the female revolution coming out. You might go, oh, whoops, but that's probably a lot to do with how he's been raised. And he's probably come at it from a really loving perspective. I always like to see the best in people. And genetically, if we go back to genetically, that is what we do, and the balance is out at the moment. We have the balance is out. The balance is moving. It's tipping out. And you can get into a much bigger sort of ethereal conversation around this. But there's women now have rights. They've got money. They're educated. They can make their own decisions. And so, with a 22-year-old who's raised by potentially a single mum or a feisty family or working family or whatever that her background is, goes, I'm really passionate about my career. I was at 22 as well, And then you're met with, why don't you want to stay at home and have babies? It's like, well, do you? Why don't you stay at home and have the babies? Well, that's not my role. Who said? Things are changing. Go with it. And we're still not quite there. I think that's a brilliant way to say we have hope. And it's still not nudging the dial. Oh
yeah,
dear.
that's why I just wanted to bring these up, because you were talking about generations, and I was like, what generation are you talking
Yeah,
about?
I keep
Something
hoping,
that
like I
just
said
doesn't
to you.
exist anymore.
Like I said to you, still got hope, right? I keep seeing some of the same. It's really fascinating. I mean, watching people, like I said, I know some incredible people that I've worked with in this country in the past, like 10 years, who I love to bits, and males and females, and there are some really, like you said, there's loads of males with wonderful feminine qualities that really value vulnerability, openness, trust, and you could just be yourself and trust in that. And then there are other elements where that's not viable, it's not a viable situation, which is why kind of, if we go round to it, and you were saying, if somebody has ambition, then how do they go about talking about that? Find somebody safe, I say safe, who can be your champion. I think that's a really good thing if you're at the beginning of your career. And I think some of these other aspects, we're just going to live in hope that the work that we do might change. I'm so disappointed to hear about what happened to the university, with the boys on one side and the girls on the others. I've got to say, in England, it was kind of different. I became way more obvious, or maybe I just changed. I don't know. It's very pink and blue over here, you know, in so many roles. And in
Mm.
England, it was way more purple, you know?
Mm. That's yeah, that's interesting. I have never worked there, so I don't know. I have no clue. Yeah.
So
So now
your background, you're obviously technical data science, right?
I have worked only in New Zealand, and but having said that, I grew up in India, and my parents are very traditional in their values. So growing up, I always grew up uh, knowing that I am a woman and this is how I behave. These are my boundaries, right? And
Yes.
this is what a woman does, and this is the role of a woman, and this is the role of a man. But when I moved to New Zealand, I came here and I stayed with my godparents who were Kiwis. Now, moving into that family didn't really mean anything different because they lived in traditional Kiwi way, where the woman played her role of cooking, cleaning. She worked as well, but she was the person who came home in the evening, did all of the cooking, did all of the cleaning, everything, did a whole lot of household work after work, whereas the men would just sit in front of the TV and relax,
Yeah,
right? Like my parents' generation in New Zealand.
yeah,
So it didn't really make any difference to me, be it India or New Zealand, it was just the same, right? So now, when I go back and visit home, I do visit India quite a bit, and it's quite different there. Like the conversations that I have with people and working in tech, they say, well, we do have many women working in technical roles. We
yes.
don't really see much of issues there. But having said that, the structural gender issues are so ingrained, I feel, that you just accept certain biases as it's okay. This is how it is. And you just become numb to it, is what I feel.
So, in that aspect, may I ask, would it be that when the women come up to, their 30s, I've known many, many amazing Indian women over here that, will marry. And then do you find in India that the woman will then relinquish her career, which she's had for 10 or 15 years, equal to her hubby and to the other guys, people that she's
Mm.
worked with, technical or business faced? Is it naturally assumed that the female, her role will be to give up her career, um, and look after the children, and then further down the line support the elders in the family? Or has it got to the point in India where the women go back to work after, say, a year, and the parents, who will live nearby, next door, or somewhere really close, do the family caring, do that,
Yeah, that's how I have heard. And there have been a couple of, there was one particular woman who came from Singapore. She works in TCS and she's the head of Asia Pacific region in tech. And she has been working in like hands-on technical role for several years. And then she grew up into those management roles. And she has two kids, and one kid is mentally challenged as well.
oh wow.
And she's worked in Singapore overseas for many years, and she didn't really take much of a break. She always came back to work, and she had a good career despite having a couple of kids. And I am seeing many Indian women who are taking break for a few months when they're having a child, and then they go back to work. Um, and when I talk to them, I do feel at times that culturally you're sort of more immune to this, that this is how it is. And being a woman, I need to play these roles.
Yes.
And I think it's also easier if you just stick to that script. If you want to do anything different, if you challenge, then you are just seen as an outcast, right? So it's easier to just go with the flow and say, okay, this is how it is. And whoever can manage their career, they manage their career.
As well as the household items, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, so the other thing that I'm seeing across social media is the next generation, like millennials. And I know I talk a lot about generations because stuff changes, like things change. Yeah, you go forward and you forge a path, and you can only clear so much, and then the next group comes along and they try and clear something or change something. So my generation was quite early. I think women, were quite happily going to university in the 60s and 70s, but they would obviously still drop out of their career when they had children, right? It was quite rare that you would have a woman, forge ahead. And if she did, she quite often didn't have any children. She forged ahead in her career. Melanie Griffiths, working girl, massive hair, massive shoulder pads, Scrawny Weaver type thing. That was a typical sort of movie. And woe betide having children or anything else. You just and you were you were quite masculine in your approach as well, called a ball buster, for example. To try and get ahead. So things have changed a lot now. So a lot of what I'm seeing in society, like you were saying, the roles in our worlds are changing, and women have more power and authority, financial freedom, choices over their own body. There's a change with women around if they want to date, who they want to date. They've got financial freedom. They're well educated. All these things that are now coming to light in this generation to go, well, we're tipping the balance. We don't want to do everything. We want to have a partner that doesn't sit down and watch the telly or play games while we're doing the dishes, unpacking the grocery, getting the kids ready for bed. If we're both out working, then we should both be back doing something. That hasn't shifted yet. And so the women take on the bulk of the home and the home, running the home, the children, the thinking about everything. And that has a lot, and then you see a lot of stuff with the fact that we have to ask guys to do the dishes. Can you take the bins out? Can you take the kid to ballet? They're not programmed yet to step up into their role as a father, not just, or a parent. They've got children, they've got the house, they've got the car, they've got the career, but really step up. There's still this onus. Now, whether or not that shifts, whether or not the impact of women going, you know what, I'll do it on my own. I can even have a baby on my own. That's how, step up, guys. There's loads of that all over social media as well. So what does that mean? What does that mean for our outcome? And I think we tie that back into business. It's if you've got women making a massive financial contribution into the economy of your country, you have to respect the fact that they are the ones that carry the children. That is your future economy. The male aspect of creating a fetus is rather short-lived, whereas the females goes on for months and months and months. And then you have obviously a child to then contend with. And what we need is a support around everybody involved in that, including businesses, and how you support that, because you're creating new humans to come in and bounce the economy up. I don't know much about this, maybe you do, but it's only stuff that I've heard about you. And now you've got situations where generations don't want to have children. Why bring in children? And I believe there's that crisis going on about people not wanting to have more children. And I'm watching loads of videos all over social media where it's every kind of background women go, no, I'm good. I can wait a bit longer. I actually quite like life. This is good for me. I'm enjoying this. I don't want to have to stay at home and do all the dishes and do all the washing. And they're forging a change. And that should feed into business at some point.
Amanda, thanks so much for your time. And we are going to just wind this conversation down for now with our last question to you. What is your hope for women in tech in New Zealand?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much, Meena, and for having me and having us and myself representing Tech Women New Zealand. So this is my personal view. My hope for women in technology, specifically in New Zealand, is that they are able to break the boundaries that are coming up that I hope we've paved the path for. Like, I think I would have loved to have said that a lot more could have been done, but I think more needs to be done. And I hope that women stepping into the IT industry have the passion, momentum, tenacity to keep ploughing that path for the next generation and reshaping it so that it becomes something that is balanced and productive and constructive rather than anything else.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. Amazing conversation, and you're doing an amazing job in Tech Women New Zealand. And to our listeners, please make sure that you visit Tech Women New Zealand website. Just get in touch with them for initiatives that they have to encourage more women to get into tech sector. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.